You're listening to the Raw Honeys Podcast, the place to be real, be love, and befriend. Join Chelsea Fine, Heather Hildenbrand, and me, Amanda Axel. We're real friends who aren't afraid to talk about the raw truth of real life. If you're looking for a group of girlfriends who will support and encourage you when the going gets tough, this is the place to be. Pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and enjoy the show. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. This is Amanda Axel, and I'm here with Chelsea Fine and Heather Hildenbrand to talk to you about swearing. I grew up swearing like a sailor, and not because I was raised by one. Yep, I'm a Navy brat. Ironically, he never used any bad language. But my elders would always say that it's not very ladylike, while my friends would say, who gives a fuck? So I made a compromise and told myself that I would vastly reduce my potty mouth by the time I was 30 because, hey, that's when you're a real grown-up, right? Well, 30 came and went, and I really don't give a shit about cleaning up my language. And then I heard a fun fact. People who swear tend to be more honest. And who the hell doesn't want to be considered honest? So needless to say, I love all words. Okay, there are some words I'd never even think, let alone say, but most of them are fair game. Still, sometimes I wonder if dropping an F-bomb makes me sound uneducated or less of a lady. So which side of the language border do you guys stand on? Heather, you want to start?
Yeah, so I grew up swearing in private. I think, like all my friends would swear. So I would swear when I was around my friends growing up, but then I would go home and it was this totally different environment. So I would just have to sort of change, flip the switch, and change my language. And we did not curse at home. Nobody cursed at home, not my parents, nobody, family members, nobody. So it was like this, I don't know, it kind of made me feel like a bad girl when I did, which I enjoyed. It made me feel like a badass to say bad words. So I would do it, but obviously not in front of my parents. And so now, I am just the complete opposite of my parents in so many ways. Now that I'm older, now that I'm a mom, now that I have kids, I'm a lot more relaxed about the words I choose to use. I'm okay with it. I swear. All right. My name is Heather Hildenbrand and I swear. There you go. What about you, Chelsea?
Well, my name is Chelsea Fine and I didn't start swearing until just a few years ago. But
it is not our fault, you guys. Okay.
Yeah. Everybody's looking at us.
I know. Well, when did you meet Heather and Amanda?
Right.
A few years ago.
Exactly right. No, but I grew up in a household where swear words were just not allowed. It was non-negotiable. And, but yeah, I never heard anyone in my family swear, not my parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, nobody. And I have a huge family. But I just was raised in a very religious, very conservative upbringing. And so swear words were they were not acceptable. They weren't acceptable in movies or music or anything. And I was fine with that, growing up with that. That was just life, it's just how you grew up. And I didn't even really curse that much privately. I did occasionally, starting probably in junior high, every once in a while, I would curse when I was with my friends. To, because it would make me feel so cool. But I couldn't do it without feeling this enormous guilt, crazy amount of guilt. Like I would say a really bad word, like the word damn, and I would just have remorse, just coursing through my veins all day. Just because of the association that I put with curse words and being, bad or immoral or whatever. But a few years ago, I went through kind of a personal transformation, and I did a really powerful plant medicine that really kind of opened my mind to some incredibly beautiful parts of being human that I hadn't been paying attention to prior to then, and it freed me. It freed me in so many ways. But as far as language and words that I use, it like released me from any kind of guilt. And basically, now I use curse words all the time and they're powerful and they're emphatic and they're beautiful, which is weird to say. I know, but I love using curse words the way that I use them. I'm very, very deliberate when I use them, and I try to use them. I know Heather and I talk about this a lot. We try to use our curse words in positive ways, like to really emphasize a point that's beautiful or inspiring. Because yeah, that's what language is. Language is a tool. It's a tool to make us understand and feel one another. And why restrict that tool? So yeah, I used to be a non-cursor, and now I am a pro-cursor. So that's where I stand. Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, you guys, I really want to make this like really cheesy joke about a precursor. And I blame my husband and his dad jokes, and don't ever tell him that I just said that cheesy joke. Okay?
I'm going to tell him.
All right, well,
Don't send him this episode. This will be the one he listens
nobody
to.
send this episode to Heather's husband. Actually, that's really cool, Chelsea, that you had this transformational experience, and then out of it, you started swearing more. So,
yeah.
Can you give us an example of what using curse words in a positive way looks like for our listeners?
All right, listeners, I'm going to drop an F-bomb right here, so just be ready. One of my very favorite things, this is actually a phrase I like to use. I know I use it with you guys often. I love to use it, especially with my female friends, when I really want them to feel my love and feel really empowered personally and as a woman. I love to look my friends right in the eyes, and you know how I am with my hands, like my hands right up, like I just want to grab your face and kiss you kind of, but I like to look my friends right in the eyes and be like, you are so fucking beautiful. Just do it. You know what I mean? Like just throw it at them and give them that word as like a powerful tool, like what we're talking about, that's yours. You are beautiful. You are fucking beautiful. That belongs to you. That's my, I got that chills right now. I love it.
I do too. That was awesome because it's empowering then, it's like, yeah, it does something to you when you say it, the person who says it, it does something to you, but then the way you're saying it, it's doing something to the other person too. It gives them a reaction, like a physical response. It's so cool.
It's a boost. You're boosting the word beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Somebody write that down.
And it does work because she has said that to both me and Heather on probably several occasions, and we love it. But it's not even like a conscious thing, I think. Like, I don't think I ever really put it together until you just exemplified it right there. But yeah, I think the fucking helps.
Not to be taken out of context.
All right. There's going to be a lot of those on this episode, so...
There's a part of that is us reclaiming curse words too. Us as women, us as people. There's a big power in that.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings me to a question that I had is, even though we all feel very comfortable swearing clearly, is there any part of you guys that feels less ladylike, kind of what we were taught as little girls, when we're using this type of language?
Well, I think the idea that I have to talk a certain way or look a certain way or dress a certain way or act a certain way in order to be considered a lady is bullshit.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think that my choice to use curse words is just because that's who I am, and I think that our job is to be who we are, not to fit into society's picture of a lady or a man. Or also, what's the flip side of that? So cursing is too manly, so only the men get to curse? Fuck that.
Right.
That's not fair, I mean, when you flip it around like that and think about it like that, like, well, why is it not ladylike? This is why I didn't fit in with my family's rules very well. Because I would use these arguments at like 10. Like, okay, well, let's flip it around. And they didn't like that because it was like, Chelsea, it was an absolute rule. But when you start to think about, well, why does society look at it like that? I don't know. It's never made sense to me that cursing and ladylike aren't allowed to exist together. That just doesn't make sense to me. I'm a lady because for lots of other reasons than the fact that I would curse or not. I don't know. So I just sort of rejected that outright from the very beginning. And I don't know, when I choose to curse, especially in front of people who maybe I don't know as well, I don't know as well as you guys, or if I'm in, I'm strategic about when I do it in social settings and especially in business settings. But when I do it in those settings, it's more strategic about like just general respect. And what other people's rules or views about language are. Always, that's what it is. It's never like, oh, are they going to think I'm unladylike? I don't know. I've never thought about it like that before.
What about you, Chelsea?
Well, I think that I have more of I think that what I'm trying to do, like, I enjoy using curse words now. Like, I feel that I don't enjoy using them at people. I enjoy using them correctly, right? So, because that's how I feel about it. I use them with intention and I use them without apology. And I think that the ladylike thing, it's huge in our culture. It's huge. It totally exists, no matter what generation you're from. It's somewhere deeply embedded into our culture. But I think for me, what I'm trying to do is, even though there is always going to be a part of me that doesn't feel ladylike when I curse because I was raised and have grown up thinking that's unladylike, I want to break that. I want to change it. I want cursing out of my mouth to be the most ladylike thing I kind of do in that moment. And so part of that has to do with how I carry myself and how I choose to use the curse words. I dress very girly. You guys know this, right? I wear lots of dresses and jewelry and I'm sparkly or whatever. Because so not that matters, but there's a part of me that embraces the ladylike aspect of those things. But I want to look like that and then have these really strong words come out of my mouth and not have a contrast really be seen between the two, right? Like what Heather's saying, like those two things shouldn't be mutually exclusive. And so I think it's something that I'm just still battling with. Like, I think if I'm being honest, I don't feel quote unquote ladylike when I'm cursing, but that's why I continue to do it, is so that I get to a point where I do feel like that I don't even think about whether or not it's ladylike. It's like I'm trying to rearrange how it feels inside my head and how other people see me, that, am I ladylike or am I not? I think that at least right now in this moment, I'm at a place where I know I can't control that. And a lot of people are not going to find it ladylike, but I just really want to continue to invest in it and not change my path with curse words right now. Because even if I just change one person's mind about whether or not curse words are ladylike coming out of my mouth, it's worth it. If one woman or one friend of mine that I interact with, like, opens her mind or changes her thought process about using, a quote unquote bad word in a good way, like, that's what it's all about. So I don't know. I think I'm just still kind of like working through it. What about you, Amanda?
Well, first, I think it's really cool that you feel this responsibility with, changing people's minds, that's
it's a pretty cool call.
It is really cool. I mean, I never really thought about it like that for myself personally. So I love that you have that mission. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
You're doing a great job. But yeah, I think for me, I think it's something that I still battle too, just because it's sort of that phrase that's ingrained in you. And I would think it actually might even be much worse with you guys because, my parents were young military. I mean, we were around people who swore all the time. I was in public school, we were swearing all the time. I was allowed to watch any movie that I wanted to, like pretty much any song. I was allowed to have the Sublime album, but I couldn't have the Alanis Morissette album. Like, my mom didn't know what was up. But anyway, the point is that
it's awesome.
Despite all that, I was still getting that message, like, cursing is not ladylike. And so I think there are definitely moments when I'm swearing and I feel really crass and I don't feel like a lady. But I don't necessarily know if that's just because I'm swearing or if that's because of other behaviors or whatever. But I can say that even in those moments, I still feel like a woman, which I think is the most important thing. To always feel like being empowered as a person and, especially as a female, even if I'm not this like prissy, classy, lady, in that moment. So yeah, I think that's something I'm still working on too. But, I I guess that's, in those moments, like I'm choosing that, it's not like because I can turn it on and turn it off just like all of us. I think because, at least we grew up, secretly swearing, we knew how to turn it on and turn it off. But of course, when you become an adult, especially, when you work for yourself, and you're not in an office where you have to like watch your mouth all the time, then it gets a little harder to turn it on and turn it off. Anyway, so, but actually, so there's that one side where, swearing is not ladylike, but then there's also the association of like, children shouldn't be swearing either. So this is interesting. So I'm not a mom, and if Lonnie, my dog, could swear, I would definitely let her.
I would teach her how.
It would be so cute. Can you imagine?
I know.
This would be adorable.
It would be so cute. But for you guys, do you swear in front of your kids, one, and do you allow them to swear? Where do you guys stand on that? Heather?
Well, okay. No. So I don't really allow them to. So my kids are 15 and 12 now. And, I know enough about how they're talking to their friends to know that they've both dropped an F-bomb at some point, right? I'm not, delusional about it. I'm not naive. But in our house, no, we don't toward each other. But the main reason is because, well, one, I don't swear at anyone really ever. I hope ever, I didn't say this before, but Chelsea did. And I'm so glad, because I think this whole conversation needs to be put into the context of when we say we're swearing, we're never swearing at people, the three of us, ever. We swear in a positive way to put emphasis on something positive or uplifting or empowering, or we swear in a way to release energy, negative or positive, for ourselves in that moment, usually like when only people we trust are around, or, we're never swearing at someone or using it negatively. And so that's really important. So my kids, the only reason I don't actually, this is like probably controversial, because there are a lot of people who are like, nope, kids shouldn't. And when you're grown, you can say whatever you want. Well, I don't agree with that. I think that the only reason I'm not okay with them swearing is because they don't know how. And I have told them for many years now, I didn't curse in front of them when they were little, because, they would have repeated that, right? But as they've gotten older, I've slowly started to do it a little bit more, like strategically, on purpose, at certain times, in certain ways. And it's really funny, because when I first started doing it, they were like scandalized. They were like, Mom, did you hear what you just said? And I'm like, yeah. And it was really fun, because it's really fun to see the shock on their faces. So then I want to do it more, but now it's not a big deal anymore. But I've told them that I do that because I've told them I'm going to teach you how to swear, because there is an art to it, right?
There is. Using swear words as adjectives.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes.
Sorry, Chelsea, what were you saying?
No, I was just agreeing with Heather. Absolutely. There's an art to it. Yes.
There totally is. And so I've told them, that is the right in me saying it that way. But like, if you think about it, think about the difference between people you've met who do curse, and like some of them offend you and some of them don't. And it's all just because of the way that they curse. It's either they're cursing at people or using it negatively, or they're using it in the way we've talked about here. And that's what I mean about an art. And if my kids are going to curse, then they need to learn how to do it right.
Yeah,
they need to
so
perfect it.
So we're in a learning stage right now, and that's why I curse.
You should write a book on that.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Teaching my children to curse.
Oh yeah, can you imagine parents coming out to all the book signings for that one?
Oh my goodness.
What was that book?
Go the fuck to sleep.
Yeah, that's it.
I did read my kids that book. I read that many times. It's a beautiful story.
It's amazing.
I love that. I love that concept. What about you, Chelsea? Where do you stand on it?
Well, it's very similar to where Heather is, because I do, I believe it. There is an art to cursing, and or if there isn't, there absolutely should be for people, because, reclaiming the curse words, like we were talking about, like changing the way that quote unquote bad words are used, can change everything. And that's language in general. Just side note, because the three of us are writers, just side note, language in general can make or break worlds and religions and communities. And it's important always, in the past and in the future, always important for us to not be afraid of language, to not be afraid of words, but to learn how to use them, right? To learn how to be effective with them, and maybe to learn how to use them in ways that are only beneficial. Like, that should be the primary goal, right? But yeah, so with my kids, certainly when they were young, there wasn't like cursing and swear words in the house, just little kids, don't want them to repeat. But my children are the same age as Heather's, so 7th grade and high school. And when they were about 10, 11, 12 is when my husband and I no longer censored ourselves really over the top around them. My husband and I don't really use crazy bad words around each other anyways, like when we're joking around or anything, because we have children, so we're just trained not to. But when they were around those ages is when we started to be more honest with our interactions with each other. Or like if I stubbed my toe and I wanted to curse and stuff, it was like, I don't know, I just revealed more of my true self to my kids, but always with like this caveat about like, okay, but guys, I don't want you to repeat all the words I say just because you hear me say them. I just want you to know that your mouth is yours, and words that come out of your mouth that's your choice and your responsibility. And so responsibility is actually a big part of it. So now my kids are old enough, and they for sure, I'm sure, curse all the time when they're with their friends and stuff. But at home as a family, we don't curse like in common conversation, but everyone is allowed to use the language that is honest for them in the moment. It's kind of like our rule, as long as everyone is willing to take responsibility for how they use that language. So I don't necessarily, I guess, let my kids, but there's no punishment. There are no consequences to them being themselves, with the exception of curse words being used at people, at individuals with malicious intent, which has yet to happen. But if it does ever happen in our house, there would be consequences for that. But that's just about raising good people. Like, that's not even really about language. It's just about kindness.
Well, that kind of brings me to this next thought, because you both brought that up about the importance of how we're using this language. And so do you guys ever do you feel like you have your own personal tolerance for other people's language? And like, are you ever annoyed by their use of language? I mean, Heather gave some examples, when she was talking about it before. But I know, like, for me, I never really thought about it until Heather was just saying, it's how we use it, but it's really the attitude behind the language. It's almost like it doesn't even, and this may be true in all cases, it almost doesn't matter what you say. It's how it comes through to the other person. Like, what is your life state? Like, what is your intent behind those words? Like, where is your heart really at? I think people can feel that more than they can hear what you're saying. So I know for me, like, I think that my tolerance, like, I am forgiving of people's language to the point that I will use my own language. Does that make sense? So if they're exceeding my use, then I'm like, whoa, that's kind of a lot. Or I might have a tendency to be like, whoa, they want to dial that back a smidge. But it actually may not be just the use of the actual words, but it may be more so about how they're using them. And so actually that's interesting, because after this conversation, I think I'm going to be much more conscious about what I'm feeling or what I'm really hearing when I'm in those situations that I don't really like, with other people's language. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah, you're right. It's totally the attitude. It's totally well, because, and I mean, I know we're going to get to this, but we haven't gotten to the part where curse, there's a long list of curse words, right?
Right, yeah.
That's a broad spectrum.
We're kind of talking about your basics, your shit.
But we haven't said that. And
right.
Everybody's basic list is different. Like, some people's normal list includes words that I don't use. I just won't say in any context. I just don't like them. Yeah. And it's probably social conditioning, because, like Chelsea said, words are just tools, and it's just communication. And I mean, Eckhart Tolle talks about, like, words only mean what the meaning we've attached to them,
Yes,
and
that's so true.
So it's just a word, and why am I offended? But I just am. And so there are certain words that I just won't use, and that I will be offended if somebody else uses in a conversation with me, whether it's toward me or it's about someone else or just in general, I would be offended. And So I have probably a few that like if they just use the words, I wouldn't like it. But mostly, you're right. I think it would be the attitude because of, if somebody's joking and says something jokingly, there are things that they could get away with in a joke, like a comedian could get away with me that I wouldn't be offended because it was a joke than if they were serious. Like, okay, one example, I was at a horse farm the other night, and that's another story. Okay. And it's a cool story, but it's another story. And I was learning the ropes about how to take care of these animals because I'm going to volunteer there. And the girl, the head volunteer, was talking to me about like how it all works and stuff. And we're like an hour in, and then all of a sudden, everything's fine. We're having a good time. And she's dropped a few F-bombs, and I'm like, we're gonna be cool because we're already having it. It's whatever. And but she goes, and I guess she had a little bit of like a rough voice. I didn't really notice it. It wasn't that bad. I didn't even think about it. And then all of a sudden, she was like, yeah, guys, I'm like super sick. I don't usually sound like a dyke, but I'm really super sick. Ooh. And I went speechless because I panicked because that word offended me, the way she used it. It was really derogatory and it offended me. And I didn't know how to first of all, I had a deer in headlights moment because I didn't know whether I wanted to show that I was offended. And then I didn't know how to respectfully show I was offended without making it awkward. And then I didn't know, now that I don't want to say that I'm offended, I don't know how to pretend I'm not offended. So I had like a freak out.
That's a lot.
It was a lot.
That's a lot to try and process on a horse.
And so there were like two other volunteers there though. And this other girl picked up the slack. She just was like, oh, we didn't even notice. You sound fine. Nobody even noticed your voice. It's fine. Like very sweet and like smoothed it over. I wanted to kiss that girl in the mouth right then because it made the volunteer look at her, which was like the opposite direction. And so I was like, okay. And then I was like, yeah, totally. And then I turned and started petting the horse and like not making eye contact because I didn't know how I wanted to react. It just caught me so off guard. And I know that has happened to me before when people, usually people you don't know well because you haven't learned each other's boundaries or people who just don't care about your boundaries, and there are those too, and they'll use a word that you don't like in the context or at all. And I mean, what do you guys do? What would you have done? I'm curious. How should I have handled that?
I feel like I've been in situations like that before, but here's the thing: is like now we're talking about derogatory terms,
but it falls under. I mean, that to me it does. There are lots of curse words that are also derogatory terms.
There are, but I mean, like I wouldn't say shit is derogatory.
Right, but the ones that
yes.
But some people might, but so the ones that you find derogatory, like that one happens to be one of mine. It's not definite that it's everyone else's. There's probably a lot of people that are fine with it. So one that is yours, if somebody used it, would you like signal to them?
Particular one that's a derogatory.
So that's
like for me, that's very black and white. Like that's what is.
So that's what I mean. So but then what do you do?
But I'm sure that people use it in an endearing way, the same way we would go like, whatever, bitch, or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like so there's a way that we can that people can own derogatory terms too. So I guess you kind of have to know. So in that kind of situation, it really depends on several factors. What is the situation? How well do I know this person? How offended am I? What is their intent that I can feel from this person? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, but I know, like I remember I was in this situation, and I'm not going to talk about like who it was or the words that were used.
Don't say names.
Yeah, I'm not going to say any names. But it was a very, very long time ago, and I was young too. I think I was 19 or 20. And I'm trying to remember exactly how I handled it because it's the one that comes to mind. I think I just stopped talking to that person. I think I just like
were you in person with them?
Yeah, I was.
Did you just like literally just walk away?
I think I said something like, "Oh," and then I went back to like doing something else. Like I just completely like cut them off because I was like, because I probably definitely at that time I wasn't strong enough to call them out, and I don't even know if I would. I think it depends on the situation,
I think all of this for sure comes right back around to our lack of knowing how to use words in general. This particular conversation is about curse words, or we can talk about derogatory words, any words that have that kind of like power, any words that have gravity and weight to them, that's a little heavier than like our run of the mill words. I think it all really comes back to this, we don't give ourselves, or as women especially, but in people in general, we don't give ourselves permission to cuss in a way that's like acceptable. And so therefore everything becomes in the shadows. And then we get a bunch of gray areas for certain people. Like I know for the three of us, the word dyke is not a gray area. It is very black and white, right? Like it's absolutely, but for other people, maybe they put it in these other gray categories because they either don't understand them, they don't have a full comprehension of how they affect others, or they just have been taught differently, which just comes right back around to teaching people how to cuss, right?
So we blame their parents is what happens here.
So I do feel a book coming on, right? The art of swearing, the art of cursing, the art of just,
if it's not already one,
it should be. We just need to not be afraid of words. There are a lot of words that people are so afraid of that they use them and they are inappropriate or hurtful or offensive. But sometimes that's people's way of trying to, like, I don't know, feel powerful themselves. Like it's wrong and it's misdirected, but we've put these like really weird restraints on certain words. And we as human beings are rebellious by nature. Like we want to grab the things that we're not supposed to grab, and as opposed to like learning how to be respectful with things, So really, I think that it's just all language, even beautiful language and stuff can be used in the wrong way. And intention, like what you guys are talking about, that's number one. It's intention, right? And so my way of handling stuff like that is usually comic relief, because that's the only way I know how to handle intense situations.
I should have thought of that. Well, it was probably comedy to watch the whole thing unfold, if anyone had noticed me in that moment.
Perhaps, yes.
I'll be better prepared next time. I'm going to walk in there like, I got to be ready for anything.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's going to be a whole another episode about calling things out, because that sounds like a great topic.
Well, it could be. Actually, we should do another episode on that, because I have been thinking about it. It was something that really got my attention and has made me think the last couple of days about how strongly I felt in that moment, in all those different ways. And I had all those different conundrums at once. And about, like I have a strong opinion now about how I don't think I should have called her out. And I'm really glad I didn't. And there's consequences. So we should totally do an episode about that sometime.
We definitely will. Especially, I have some thoughts on it that I would love to say out loud right now, but I'm going to save it.
Well, and because our whole thing is about friendships and relationships. Right. And this is, to me, my takeaway of that was something that really brought it back to the relationship of me and this girl, such as it is. So we should totally talk about that, because those types of reactions, what you choose in those moments, affect relationships. And if we want to talk about how, to equip women to deal with stuff like that, I mean, that's what this is right here.
Right. Yeah. Right. And, maybe there wasn't any malintent in that particular comment that she made, but if there were, or if she didn't really understand, I think that it's our responsibility, like Chelsea's saying, is to kind of change people's perspective on these words and what they mean and how they can, offend somebody or hurt somebody in a really deep way. And we all have to be conscious of that. And I mean, that's hard. I mean, nobody's perfect, and we are definitely going to say things that piss people off or hurt people's feelings without intention, for sure. That definitely does happen. But ideally, we don't do it, like just out of habit.
Right.
So anyway, why don't we go ahead and wrap up this episode with a little message to all our honeys out there. I'll go ahead and let Chelsea start.
Oh, I could just start. Okay. Well, as far as like one takeaway thing that I want to like tell our honeys. For me, for as far as like language or bad words or swearing or whatever, I would really just want to tell all of our honeys out there that words are tools, and that words are meant to be powerful and effective. And I believe that all that power and effectiveness should be rooted in positivity, and perhaps even love. But that has to begin inside yourself, inside your heart, and giving yourself permission to be honest with how you feel, or be honest with how you use the language that comes out of your mouth. And then in addition to that, maybe allowing a little bit of permission for others to also be honest and to also be a little bit flailing about if they need to as they're learning how to use their language as well. So yeah, I would just encourage everybody to try and strip away some of the fear and the stigmas that are attached to certain words, especially for girls that we feel like make us look quote unquote unladylike or unintelligent when we use them. Maybe try and strip away some of the fear there and reclaim some of those words, but just use them in a different manner. And maybe we can like sort of pave a path for younger generations to grow up and not be so afraid of language. Yeah. What about you, Heather? What would you say?
That was awesome. I mean, that really summed up like
everything.
The episode right there. So that was amazing. I think I would just add how empowering language is when you start using it in a positive way. Because when up until a few years ago, when I would curse, I would not use it in a positive way. I was just not thinking. I was using it without thinking. I wasn't paying attention to the words coming out of my mouth. And this goes with every word, not just curse words. Every word coming out of your mouth. Pay attention to it and really work on noticing if your words are more negative or more positive, but especially with curse words, because they give everything you say a boost. And so it's going to either boost that negative thing that you're saying about yourself or someone else, or it's going to boost that positive thing you're saying. It's going to make you feel it in a physical kind of way. And one thing we didn't talk about today, but I think we're going to post a link to a couple articles that talk about this, to some benefits of cursing. And my favorite one, I actually don't know if it's in that article, but my favorite one I've ever heard, and it was on Ellen, is where I heard this, so where you get all your good information, is when you curse, it creates such a response, an endorphin rush, and a physical response in your body. It is like the equivalent of having an orgasm.
Ooh, yeah.
When you drop an F-bomb, you're like, oh yeah. Like your brain is like, oh yeah.
How many orgasms did I have this episode?
We had a lot. We all had a lot, guys. We had so many, and that's why we feel so damn good right now. So next time you're cursing, nobody wants to, well, sometimes you want angry sex, but most of the time, if you're going to curse, if you're going to orgasm, do it in a positive way. Don't forget that those curse words are going to boost to whatever you're saying and be a boost for the better.
And I would say to both your points that swearing, cursing, it does not make you any less than anything. It doesn't make you less of a woman or a lady or less intelligent. I'm a college educated person and I swear like a sailor, so There you go. Okay. But yeah. And, also I would say that, we should just really own our language, whatever it is, whatever words we choose to say or to write. Be conscious about why we're doing it and own it.
Yeah.
Guys, that's a fucking good job.
You're damn right it is.
All right, well,
that's it.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah. On the Raw Honeys.
We fucking love you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Raw Honeys podcast. If so, please share it with a friend or post a review. Heather, Chelsea, and I would love to connect with you. Check us out on Instagram at The Raw Honeys or join our community of honeys on Facebook. Thanks for listening. We wish you nothing but big love.